Pushkin.
Dare I say, Daryl Hall is one of the great pop songwriters of our time. As half of the duo Hall & Oates, he was all over the charts in the 70s and 80s, from Sara Smile to Rich Girl to You Make My Dreams and Maneater. But beyond the hits and the pop chart is a gifted, soulful writer and player of all sorts of songs. In this episode of Broken Record, I talk with Daryl Hall about his early days entrenched in Philly's R&B scene, his stint on Elektra Records with his band Gulliver that found him being label mates with The Doors, how he wrote classics like She's Gone off Abandoned Luncheonette, his partially shelved album with Robert Fripp, and his latest album, D, a collaboration between him and Dave Stewart of the Eurythmics. This is Broken Record. Real musicians, real conversations. Just a quick note here. You can listen to all of the music mentioned in this episode on our playlist, which you can find a link to in the show notes. For licensing reasons, each time a song is referenced in this episode, you'll hear this sound effect. All right, enjoy the episode. Here's my conversation with Daryl Hall.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Overworked. I'm overworked, but I'm good.
You got to take some time to relax.
Yeah, I'd like to know when that is.
Do you find being busy or not having enough to do impacts your songwriting, your creativity?
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I'm either too busy or I'm champing at the bit. It's one or the other. I'm either sitting here reading my book and going, oh, fuck, what am I doing? Or I'm overworked and might pull my hair out,
What books do you typically read?
Oh, I read, Jesus. Depending on my, if I just want to relax, I read, like Michael Connelly books and things like that. James Elroy, But, I read for information. I read constantly is what I do.
Is fiction a source of inspiration for you at all when it comes to music?
Good writing is a source of inspiration. A turn of phrase, I might twist it around my own way, adapt it to something I'm thinking about, use it in a song. I do that all the time. I hardly ever, actually, basically never, pull something directly from an author, but I'll use it in some form that is a part of the expression that I'm trying to achieve in a verse, or even maybe sometimes in a chorus.
Is there an example that comes to mind?
Oh yeah, like Say It Isn't So. That's an obvious one. It's just part of my, and also I log it in my head. I might read a phrase and remember it at some point. It'll come back to me as I'm looking for something in a lyric.
How often do you listen to music?
I am not a good audience. I don't really listen to music. I make it, I have so much music in my head that I really don't care to hear things for what? For pleasure, I guess you'd call it. I mean, I listen for information occasionally. I hear things, if I'm in out and about and I hear something come on, I might log it in my head, listen to it, say, "Whoa, that's pretty good," that kind of thing. But I don't sit around and listen to the radio. Like I said, I'm not a very good audience.
Around when did you hit that saturation point where you're like, I have enough music in my head that I don't need to sit around listening anymore?
That's hard to say. When I was a kid, a teenager or whatever, I was a sponge, All I did was collect records and listen to records and do all that kind of thing. I don't know. I guess it was after a while where this became a way of life. And experiences and music in general and life experiences started building in my head. That's when I stopped listening outside of, well, I need to, sometimes, obviously with Live from Daryl's House, I listen to an artist that's going to be on the show and I listen to their work and I try to get it inside their head and figure out how they work. And in that case, I'm an audience, but I'm not quite sure when that all started happening.
Because when you were a young kid, you used to hang out at WDAS and just...
I was a freak for music. I was the ultimate audience. I listened to everything. I used to just hang out at WDAS and in the Uptown Theater, places like that. I mean, I just lived there. literally lived there. Yeah.
What was it like getting signed to Elektra early on?
Well, Jack Holtzman was pretty cool, I have to say. I liked him. I was doing, working at Sigma Sound at Philly, and there was sort of an offshoot of Sidemen and a producer named Tommy Sellers that we, after hours, he asked me if I wanted to join in, and we used to, kind of come up with songs and do whatever. And we got a body of work together. And then this fellow that we all worked for named John Madeira, he wrote At the Hop. That's who he is. He wrote You Don't Own Me. He wrote those kind of songs from real old school Philly. And he started shopping this group of songs around, and Elektra bit. And they called it Gulliver, and it wasn't a band at all. It was just we were just writing songs. So I kind of went up there. It was my first experience outside of Philly working with or being involved in sort of a New York, a big label, the Doors or what, Elektra and everything. And it was an experience and interesting, but it wasn't real. It wasn't honest. I wasn't trying to shop my work or a band that I was working with or anything like that. So it was kind of a phony situation, really.
But did you get to meet Jack Holtzman, who ran Elektra?
He was, in those days, man, those kind of guys were very hands-on. Ahmet was the same. Absolutely. I was used to hang out, not a lot, but I used to be in Jack Holtzman's office, and he was really a nice guy, I have to say.
But you didn't write any tunes for that record, correct? Or am I wrong?
I actually did. Every Day's a Lovely Day, I think it was called, something like that. But my heart wasn't in it. I was just doing it. It wasn't really, I was doing a lot of things to try and basically get in the quote business and do things for money. I was doing commercials. I was doing sidemen stuff. I was working with the Gamble and Huff team, playing on records with those guys. I was doing anything I could do to make a few bucks. And that Elektra thing was part of that whole scene, and I was sort of trying to find myself, to tell you the truth.
By the time you get to Hall Oates, does that start to feel like this is actually what I want to do, and this isn't just a way to get in?
It was a way to get in, but it was a little of both. I had met John in school at Temple University, and I needed a roommate. We were both sort of suburban. We weren't suburban. That's the wrong word. But we lived out of town, and so I started sharing apartments with him, and we always did things separately. And I think that's the hallmark of anything I ever did with John Oates. He had his own world. I had my own world, and proximity pulled us together more than anything, even in those days. So we decided, I remember the words, I said, we'll share the stage. You do your thing, I do my thing. And that was how the Hall Oates thing happened, because on the mailbox it said Hall and Oates, and we turned it into Hall Oates, really, really creative. And we used to play around Philly in these little places. There was a place called World Control Headquarters that held about 80 people, and we became fixtures there. And we started getting a following. And then we'd play other places that were similar, and we started doing that. And that was how the whole relationship with Oates got started, by doing that and people enjoying it, what we were doing. And then we started looking around for a record deal after that.
Did you recognize at the time what working with like an Arif Mardin meant?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Because I was used to working with Tommy Bell and Gamble and Huff, so I knew what good shit was. I knew immediately that Arif was something special. I mean, I was familiar with his work, first of all. I mean, he'd go from Carly Simon to Aretha to me to you name it, to all these folk bands, all kinds of things. He taught me fluency in a lot of musical languages. I think I really learned that for the first time from him. Before that, I was more like just straight out of Philadelphia, or at least my version of it.
What was his impression of your songs?
He said that I reminded him of an English composer that I can never remember the name. There was an obscure English composer, and it was something about that was his frame of reference. But he saw something in me that I think other people hadn't seen yet.
Did that encourage you at the time, scare you?
It didn't scare me, but it encouraged me because he was an encourager. He tried to bring it out. He tried to give me confidence. He egged me on. He was a cheerleader. You know, he had a great sense of humor too. But he kind of made me feel legitimate in what I was thinking about and doing, and to be unafraid to do things.
Do you remember an album like Abandoned Luncheonette, which is the second Hall Oates record he worked with you guys on also? The songs themselves sound leaps and bounds more evolved past Hall Oates, but then also just the way that they were put together or the way that they were arranged or orchestrated. And how much of that was just you guys progressing as artists and you progressing as an artist, Daryl, and how much of that was working with Arif and seeing the potential in the songs that you were writing?
The Hall Oates album was this grab bag of songs that John Oates and I had written over the years. Like we were still in high school and college, you know, we decided we were going to put them down on record. To me, the Hall Oates record was a Hall Oates demo. It wasn't really a record. It was in record form. It was sold as a record, but it wasn't a record. It wasn't a thought. Abandoned Luncheonette, in my opinion, was our first record. And the times dictated that kind of production, you know. I think the involvement of a guy named Christopher Bond, it can't be discounted with it because he was a budding producer himself. And he was unlike me or Reef, he was totally a Beatle maniac, you know, and I think he was influenced by that kind of late period Beatle music. And you can always hear it in the songs where there'll be whatever I'm doing or Oates is doing, and then suddenly this kind of Beatlesque thing will be attached to it, you know, which bugs me, to tell you the truth. But then I think I don't know if it enhanced the album, but I am very proud of that album, and it was. I think the body of work was really interesting. I consider it to be the first Hall & Oates record, and maybe one of the only real Hall & Oates records.
What makes you say that?
Because we didn't really work together that much after that. We did that record, and then we did that record, War Babies album.
Todd Rundgren.
That was basically me and Todd, you know, and then after that, it really got very separate, where John wrote some songs and he'd sing them. You'd hear them on there, and his voice would be the lead singer. And then I wrote whatever I wrote, and that was the majority of it. And that idea that continued all the way through our career, really.
So 72, 73, Abandoned Luncheonette, you guys are working actually together. What was it about that time that allowed that to unfold that way?
I think a lot of it had to do with, we were new. It was us against the world because we were still really kids, just out of college. And we were sharing apartments. We moved from Philly to New York, and we shared an apartment. We were in the same house. So it was kind of hard to not collaborate because, you know, I'd be doing something and he'd hear it, or he'd be doing, like She's Gone, for example, which is a real Hall & Oates song, 50-50 all the way. He was playing that kind of chorus riff, like a folky riff. And I said, well, that's cool. That's kind of interesting. And I sat down at the piano and I went, I did that. And that turned into She's Gone. And then we rewrote the lyrics together. So that was a real Hall & Oates song.
Were you guys proud of that song at the time? I mean, that is still to this day just a jaw dropper.
I knew it was good, but and then we took that to Arif, and talk about jaw drop. His jaw dropped, and I was just playing it on a Fender Rhodes, and he's the one that came up with that, and all that progression at the end of the song, which is really off the wall, really, but that was his idea completely.
That's interesting because that progression sounds almost like almost feels like a signature, at least of yours. Like I feel like that change, that step up. I'm just shocked that came from him.
Well, I learned it from him and decided it was a good idea.
Because that's one of those moments when you're listening to that, you're like, oh, there's the Hall Oates that I think the majority of people think of when they think Hall Oates, just the casual listener.
I have mixed feelings about modulation, but I like it. Sometimes it's really effective, like in a She's Gone kind of song. More recently, I don't use so much modulation anymore.
Why is that? What causes the mixed?
No, I just changed my taste changed.
It's not an intellectual thing.
No, you know what it is? Too many shitty songs modulated. A modulation is a trick to take something mediocre and make it sound like it's better than it is, in a lot of cases.
Was there ever the thought after Abandoned Luncheonette to do something more on your own?
That's when I decided that I wanted. It's a strange thing. I started getting that sort of, okay, I want to go out there and do this myself at that period of time. But I was in an environment with people who did not want to hear about it. And they did everything they could over all those years to stop me and stop my impulses to do that and try and keep me in line, if you want the truth, to be and keep me doing what they were making money from.
Was that label pressure?
It was label, management, everything.
When did your relationship with Tommy Mottola start?
It started back around that Hall Oates period, really. He was working in Chapel Music. He had an office the size of a closet. And we went up there with John Madeira, and we were doing something. I don't even know why. I guess John Madeira was trying to lease his publishing or something. And I got started talking to Tommy, and Tommy wanted to be a manager. He had big ambitions. And I guess he heard me play something or whatever, and he said, why don't you don't want to stay in Philadelphia, why don't you let me manage? And I went, well, that's interesting. Okay, sure. And he kept me laughing for about 15 years, and then I woke up.
When you write a song like Gino on the White Album, that's about Tommy Mottola, right?
I was speaking truth right there.
Did he find that funny at the time, or?
He acted like he thought it was funny. I assume he was smart enough to realize what it was about.
How'd you come up with the chorus on that? It's such a strange.
He used to say shit like that. Hard work means something, and live fast, die laugh. And that's all he did was laugh all the time. No hurt in asking, nothing for nothing. And that's straight out of his mouth.
We'll be right back with more from Daryl Hall after the break. I want to talk about Todd Rundgren and David Foster, because you do War Babies with Todd Rundgren. You do a couple of records with David Foster. To hear you say that Arif kind of opened you up and allowed you to sort of put all these different styles and kinds of music together makes sense to me, because it's very hard to make sense of your career in the sense of it's so broad. You make records with Arif, David Foster, Todd Rundgren, Robert Fripp. It's insane.
It's different.
It's incredible.
Well, first of all, I as you can imagine, I'm an adventurous soul, and I'm not afraid. I like to try things. I like to expand myself. I like to put myself in sometimes uncomfortable situations, but usually just in creatively exciting situations, and see what comes out of it. Todd was the first one that I did like that. I have very mixed feelings about the War Babies album. I think there was a lot of great ideas on it. To me, it sounds like squirrels on acid. It just, sorry. People talk about that album and I go, okay, well, I'm glad you like it. But at least it was an attempt to break out of something and be open to the world, be open to the musical world. And I tried to keep that attitude, and I certainly kept that attitude when I worked with Robert, and that was the point, except that I was more controlled within that, and I think what I did with Robert I was very happy with. And David Foster, that was another one that it was kind of suggested. David was 22 years old when I met him, and he had done some things with Chicago, I think. We were one of the first bands that he ever really produced. we butted heads, but at the same time, I think there was a lot of respect going on there, and on both sides, and we did some interesting things.
When you're in a situation like that, and you and Oates maybe aren't as strong as a partnership as you could be, and you're sort of button heads with the producer also, that's got to be a bit isolating.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I was dealing with it like it was my show, and it was the principal characters was me and the producers, and I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted to do, and a guy like David, he comes from the autocratic school, where he's a great musician and he wants people to do it his way, and I don't necessarily agree with that all the time.
You mentioned you were really happy with the Robert Fripp record. It blew my mind. I looked back at the dates, and you guys recorded that the month after he raps Heroes with David Bowie. And then he's in the studio with you the next month, and you guys are making what's your first solo record.
I met Robert I was actually playing a gig in Toronto, and Robert happened to be there, and he came backstage, and we instantly clicked. And he was right at the time he was very involved in the Gurdjieff philosophy thing, and he was going away to retreat. And he said, I'm going to, this is Robert's way, I'm going to go away on retreat for about 6 months. And then when we come back, why don't you and I get together and make some music together? And I said, sure, okay, sounds good. And he decided he was going to move to New York City after the Gurdjieff thing and sort of immerse himself in New York. And that's when Heroes happened and all that. And he and I started palling around together, really. And we recorded the Sacred Songs album. I had a few songs, and some of the songs we recorded on the spot and just made up on the spot. And we did it in town in New York. And then he said, okay, well, I want to make a record. Let's do the same thing for my record. So we made a record that became Exposure, a Robert Fripp record called Exposure. And that was my first setback because we recorded and wrote the songs together. And my label said that they wouldn't allow me to use my vocals on the record. I finally got them to let me use, I think, 2 or 3. And he had the task of trying to find someone or people who could copy or have some kind of reasonable try to copy the vocals that I had come up with on the record, which luckily he found some people who were pretty good to do it. But man, was it frustrating. I realized that I was really in trouble, that I was really being locked into something that I didn't see having a happy ending.
It's wild to hear you say that because from the outside, it doesn't trucking.
It'd keep on trucking. I had no choice. And here's the thing. Not only did I keep on trucking, because Robert was saying, okay, let's put a band together and start doing this for real. And then suddenly I had a commitment to RCA to go in, and that's when Voices album happened. And the whole fucking world blew up for Hall Oates. And then I was really stuck in the groove with the situation I was in.
Did you hear any of that stuff he had been doing with Bowie, that Fripp had been doing with Bowie around that time?
Yeah, sure. I was pretty familiar with that whole scene. I knew Brian Eno and Robert, and I got to know Peter Gabriel, and I worked with Lou Reed. And we actually, Hall Oates, believe it or not, we opened for a Lou Reed tour.
You did?
So it's hard to believe, but we did. Yeah, and I knew David. So, I mean, yeah, I was familiar with all this stuff that was going on.
Right, because you guys opened for David Bowie, too, around 72-ish.
That was really early, yeah.
How was Lou Reed on the tour?
It was the Sally Can't Dance No More tour. Sally Can't Dance No More. Yeah, and he was strange, man. I mean, to say that is just to be obvious. I mean, Lou is a very unusual man, and I kind of liked him. I liked his attitude. I liked he just didn't give a fuck. He was a curmudgeon, but yet he wasn't. There was a lot going on with Lou Reed that I think more than people even realize. And I wound up living in New York City. I lived next door to him. So, I mean, not only did I go on tour with him, but I used to see him walking his dog and things like that. And I wouldn't say he was a friendly man, but,
Would you talk though? Would you, keep it cordial?
occasionally I'd say something to him and go, "Hey, how you doing?"
What do you make of his songwriting?
I was just with Dave Stewart, and Dave Stewart has a book of Lou Reed's lyrics, and I was in between doing stuff that we were doing. And this just happened last week. And I started reading his lyrics and the early stuff, the Velvet stuff. I mean, it's good. It's completely different than anybody else. I mean, you take a song like, I don't know, Sister Ray or something like that. I mean, the words are just amazing. It's a slice of life, an ugly life and a fucked up life, but it's, he managed to create a mood that was based on something that really was. And I respect him.
I thought about him a bit when I was listening back through your records, because with Lou, it always felt like there was, he knew how to write a pop song and just subverted the hell out of it, And it felt like you could do either thing. Like, it felt like you could write the perfect pop song. You could write the most subversive, weird thing with Robert Fripp. I mean, it's like, and everything in between,
Yeah, I mean, that describes the way my brain works. I can go both ways, or a lot of ways. I always say I speak a lot of musical languages.
Yeah. Do you remember any of Water Wheel?
I remember, but I would never be able to sing it because my voice ain't near that high anymore, man. I wrote that. I was just out of high school when I wrote that. The Philly scene, it was a really strange thing. There was a big folk scene going on too. And I heard something that made me want to write that. I don't remember what it was. And it was basically written in that tradition. And it was certainly different than anything I was doing when I was, say, working with Game On Up or something.
It's interesting how nostalgic you can be just out of high school.
Yeah. I know. I think all these songs I wrote, I seem to be obsessed with writing songs about nostalgia and being older and all that when I was just a kid. I don't know why I thought that way. Don't ask me.
Yeah. But to be able to write a song like Water Wheel, it wasn't a hit, but sounds in so many ways like a perfect pop song from that era of when songs sounded like that. Then to be able to go and do something like, just United State, on voices. And then to do, one of my favorites, like I'm in a Philly mood, in like 93, 94. I mean, that you have that kind of a range. You can write in all of these various styles, these things that are just like deep and incredible is something else.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't ask me why I can do that, but I seem to have the ability to do it. My ears are open, and I have that facility, I guess. I would never be able to explain that.
And by the way, I just want to say you put your voice down, but I watched the Fripp live at Daryl's house, you and Robert Fripp, and your version of NYC that you did probably just 2 years ago sounds better than the record.
Still do that.
We should talk about Dave Stewart, because you did a record with him in the 80s. I think your third or second solo record. You guys just did a record together last year, D. How did you guys come together?
Like many things. I met him. I just met him. Somebody introduced me to him, and they said, somebody said you guys should get together. I think you'd enjoy each other's company. And he was. I've lived in London for a lot of time. I don't live there right now, but for years and years I lived in London. So I went up to his house. At the time he was living up in Maida Vale, and I went in, and we immediately started. I literally went into his house. He says, "Come downstairs," and we started writing a song. That was the way I met Dave Stewart. we've been friends ever since. We just get along. I don't know what it is. And he makes me feel creatively, he's a very stimulating person. He makes me feel alive. He's a gigantic bundle of energy. And he's extremely smart and extremely full of ideas. Like, I can't even tell you how, but it never stops with him. And I don't know, he's just fun to be with. And so over the years, we made that record, we made the Three Hearts album, and we had a great time doing it. And then over the years, we've written a few things and done things together, and he's played on some of the records and done things with him. And more recently, I told him about a place I live in the Bahamas, and he wound up buying a house down there. So we're neighbors now on top of it all. It's family. It's really become family with him.
You might have figured out the life if you're moving between New York, London, and the Bahamas.
That's a good triangle.
This might be the perfect triangle. His stuff with the Eurythmics is, his stuff in general, but that Eurythmics stuff to this day, I've been revisiting it because I've been playing it for my kids, and that stuff's mind-blowing still.
He wrote those songs,
Yeah.
And that's his productions. And he's a great singer, by the way, which doesn't hurt. She sang the shit out of that stuff. And he has a great body of work.
The sounds you guys got on the new record, like the whole world's better.
Yeah.
Beautiful sound.
Yeah. That song, I love playing that. I recently in my latest tours, I'm starting the show with that because there's just something about it. Then, when you just bang that thing out, it just, wow, it just makes you stand up. That song, I wrote that song about one subject, and I had most of that song, and then it turned into something else, and it became anthemic. And that was Dave's idea to put and we just had people come in, friends from the island, they come in and sang. So it became a real communal, anthemic kind of song.
What was the song originally about?
It was about, like many of my songs, I had a very tempestuous relationship with my late wife. And I don't know, she was so moody with what I would hear her saying in the kitchen, everything got better. That's where it started.
Is there an early version of that you can share a bit of?
No, not really, because I had the chorus, and that was the original, and then I had the chords of the song, but I didn't have the words, and that's when it turned into something else. When I was with Dave, and I had a melody without any words to go with it, and then I wrote with his major help. I wrote the lyrics.
Would you mind giving us a little of the chorus, just because you gave us a bit, and it's too good to.
Here it is.
Man, it's a moving song. It's a moving song.
It comes from a real emotion. Everything I write comes from something real. And people ask me, what, you're a new musician in the world, what do you do? I said, you got to believe it. You got to live it. It's got to be something that almost makes you want to cry inside, or does make you cry inside. Just me playing that, I just got a feeling in my throat, because it brought back the memories of when I wrote it. Yeah, like that.
Yeah. You mentioned your late wife, Sarah Allen, Jana Allen, were incredible inspirations and collaborators.
Without a doubt.
Along your career.
Both Sarah and Jana, they played such a large part in the songs from the 80s. Jana originated Private Eyes, and she originated Kiss on My List, things like that. They were complete collaborations. And Sarah, is a really good lyricist, and she contributed a lot.
Did they figure how to channel that from being around you, or?
I think so. I don't know if I just gave it off. They were both musical people, and especially Jana. Jana's a guitar player and a singer and all that. Sandy is a singer, but more of just a music lover. And I think proximity had to do with it. And I don't know, something rubbed off, and they just came up with really good ideas, and they would throw them out and just to complement things, really add to the quality of whatever it is that I was coming up with.
How would Jana bring like a Private Eyes to you?
She actually made a demo of that. The chorus was there, but then I kind of fleshed out the verses. I changed, that's a pretty complicated chord progression, all the chords. And so that had to do with me. I was doing that. But she came up with Private Eyes watching you. They see your every move. She came up with that. That was her.
Can you play through a bit of that chord progression you were?
Okay, let's see here. I can't believe that I have to think about it.
So she had those chords, or?
She came up with the chords. Well, okay. She came up with that.
Wow. What a gift.
Yeah. Well, she had one. And talk about, I don't know, man, tragedy sometimes. I mean, she died really young. She got leukemia and died. She was 39 years old. And I'm still miss her.
Did that impact you and Sara working together?
Oh, Sara was she was my partner. But did it impact it? I can't say it didn't. It kind of put disruption in our family. Yeah.
That kind of personal stuff, would you put that into music?
I do all the time. I'm not afraid to put it all out there. The most obvious one is on the D album and the new album, and I'd rather be a fool.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the end of that song. I'm just saying it.
When you put something like that down, does it ever give you pause?
I'm not afraid. I put my emotions right out there. Rather Be a Fool is a very direct version of that. You can't look at my music without hearing the reality of it. It's all in there.
Has it ever caused, maybe not problems, but has it ever caused friction with people that you're close to?
I think I've made some people sad. I'm saying that with a smirk on my face, which is terrible, because I don't feel smirky about it. But I don't know. I mean, the truth hurts sometimes, and that doesn't mean you can't speak the truth.
I had a conversation with Michael McDonald about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and he told a story about, I think it was, I can't remember which Doobies record it was now, but one of the records wasn't doing so well. And one of the black A&Rs at Warner said, like, this should go on black radio, Living on the Fault Line. That's what it was. And sent it to black radio. Black radio loved it and kind of saved that version of the band. But it occurred to me, like the Doobies, there was a number of groups like that they kind of got eventually pigeonholed as yacht rock, but really what it was just, they were just R&B guys. They were just making R&B records, and they were white. And so
this is something I don't understand. First of all, yacht rock was a fucking joke by two jerk-offs in California. And suddenly it became a genre. And I don't even understand it. I never understood it. And I'm glad you're saying that. It's just R&B. It's just another with maybe some jazz in there. It's mellow R&B. It's smooth R&B.
Yeah.
I don't see what the yacht part is.
Yeah. But it seemed like, like with the Doobies, for instance, like because they were white guys, they didn't know where to, or not all of them, but the majority, Michael McDonald's white, and it's like they didn't know where to put it. It's like, well, I can't go on black radio because you guys aren't black, but the white audience, they want to hear, whatever they want. But it doesn't feel like you guys necessarily ever had that issue from my vantage point. I don't know if you feel that way.
I was more of a pioneer. I mean, my music, I had a group called the Temptones, and I had a, pretty like a top 20 hit in Philadelphia, on WDAS. And Sara Smile broke on R&B on black radio. It had to make its way to pop radio. That's how Hall Oates started. That's our origins. And people misjudged us and because they couldn't label us, and they came up with all this kind of crap, soft rock and yacht rock and all this other nonsense. And none of it really describes anything that I do, really.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't describe anything anybody does.
I didn't realize Sara Smile broke on black radio first.
Yeah, out of Ohio, R&B station, in Ohio, not Dayton, but someplace like that. And then it spread to the R&B charts. And it wasn't until after it was a gigantic record in the R&B charts that it went to pop radio.
Makes sense. I mean, that is a hell of a soulful record. And listening to it recently, I play guitar, so I was always taken by the guitar part, and I love vocals, so I was always taken by the vocal. I hadn't paid proper attention to the bass until recently, but I think it was Leland Sklar on there.
I think it was the guy that played that amazing guitar solo was Christopher Bond, and that is one of the most beautiful, amazing introduction guitar solos ever written.
It really is. I mean, the notes played and the way it's played, the way he approaches it.
What an amazing guy. He was a very unusual guy. He's unfortunately not with us anymore.
Your vocal runs on there too are I mean, just your choices vocally are, I mean.
I was just being, again, just, I don't know. That was reality, man. I wrote that song like a postcard to Sarah Allen. And I don't know, there it is.
Yeah. We'll be back with the rest of my conversation with Daryl Hall. How would you approach in the studio, like a song like Alone, just thinking of that album now, like Alone, Too Long? That's a John song, right?
That's a John song.
How much would you involve yourself with John songs, I guess, you know?
I would do all the backgrounds and everything. I would flesh out. John would have the song. And this goes with any of his songs that were on a Hall Oates record, like Had I Known You Better Then or something like that, and Alone Too Long. And I would come up with a vocal arrangement that would accompany his song and do all the parts, sing. If it was a 3-part harmony, I'd sing 3 parts. And I mean, when you listen to Hall Oates records, that's all me singing. Like Kiss on My List, that's all me singing the backgrounds. Occasionally, John would sing a part on a record, and sometimes I would sing the parts and then tell him to sing over one of the parts. That's how we did it. I mean, I did it, excuse me.
Was there anything in your view special about your blends, just the way your voices would blend?
Well, the reason to blend is because it was all me.
Okay.
I can blend with myself, man.
When might you, though, decide, John, sing this. I got something for you. Sing this. Like, when would that occur to you?
Because I wanted to add his timbre to the background. It was one of those things. I mean, John has a very distinct voice, and
it's not a bad voice either.
Hey, I'm not putting that down. But and on stage, I mean, you could tell when we were working together. I mean, it was, you wouldn't know in a million years. But he was more of a take dictation kind of a singer. You know, like sing this.
I mentioned I'm in a Philly mood. That's one of those songs that makes me wish I was actually from Philly. I wish I could say I'm in a Philly mood. That whole record, but I mean, that song is incredible. Borderline. You have a Mariah sang backgrounds on a song and co-wrote a song.
Yeah, she wrote. What was that one?
Help Me Find a Way.
Find a Way to Your Heart.
Yeah.
That was a song I wrote with Mariah. Yeah. Philly Mood is one of my favorite songs I ever wrote. And I play that every show. I love singing it. I like playing it. It really describes the way I feel and the way I felt. And again, the scenes that I was creating, and boy, is that real. That's a very emotional song to me. It's kind of like Tony Bennett's I Left My Heart in San Francisco. It's the mood, man. It's Philly mood.
You worked with a couple of folks from the Family Stand, which I feel like that group is sort of maybe lost to time a bit, but they were really, really cool.
They were really cool. I don't know why that didn't really stick around, you know. They and Peter and Jeff. That's Peter Lord and Jeff Smith. That was a really interesting combo that we had going. That was talk about Philly mood, you know. Peter was really good. He egged me on, you know. He really he brought a certain thing out of me that I don't think anybody else has. You know, and I think that Soul Alone record sort of reflects that. You know, reflects the mood, the thing that he brought out in me.
Do you think you can put into words what he brought out of you?
No, I can't. It's just something. That certain kind of jazz soul thing that I occasionally do, but brought that to the front.
When you did Help Me Find a Way to Your Heart with Mariah, I think Emotions maybe had been a hit at that point. But were you very familiar with her?
Oh yeah, it was Tommy Mottola's girlfriend.
Right.
I mean, my God. And she actually came up with it. She came up with the chorus to that, and she played it for me, and then I went from there.
So that song started with her.
Yeah, she sent me that. She sent me a tape. Would help me find a way to your heart, da, da, da. And then I kind of enhanced it.
I always feel like people sleep on Mariah as a songwriter. As someone who can write a song.
I think Mariah is a very talented person, as we all know. And but I think that she got into that whole diva thing, and with the big voice and all over the place voice, but that kind of takes away from the source of it. The fact that she can put together a good song. She's good, man. Mariah's happening.
Yeah. Are you gonna do any more live from Daryl's house? Is that?
Yeah. Doing one on Tuesday, and I'm not going to tell you with who because I never do. But yeah, that's an ongoing project. I've been doing it for a long time, and I've decided instead of doing whole seasons, I'm just going to do occasional ones, maybe in groups of 1 and 2 or 3 or something like that, and just keep adding to my YouTube channel.
What does that add to your life, your creative life, doing that show?
I love it. I love Live from Daryl's house. I love doing it. It's the most stimulating experience that you can imagine because we don't do any rehearsing. Only the most rudimentary of do we know what's happening. And so everybody is completely on their toes, doing it for the first time. There's an artist in there that may or may not be comfortable, and I have to make them comfortable. Sometimes they're, especially the heritage artists, they're stuck in their ways, and I have to unstick them. There's so many things going on, and then we have those amazing, conversations around dinner and the whole thing. It's an amazing experience. Usually takes me 2 days to recover from one.
Have you ever come out of one feeling like, oh, maybe we could do a whole record together?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've gotten a lot of people. I mean, what I've been doing, instead of making records together, like, okay, I'm going out on the road with Glenn Tilbrook, and then I'm going to be working with him all year, I think off and on. And he's an LFDH, Life of Daryl's House alumni at this point, So I think that I came up with this idea based on how we work together that way. And there's a lot of artists like that. Howard Jones is another one that I've done. Todd, obviously. Yeah. I mean, that's what I do on stage now. I do a version of Live from Daryl's house.
And that's maybe more rewarding. Because I was just thinking, that you can get, and most especially heritage artists, that you can get them to come and play in that way that you do and get them comfortable, but also sort of be on the edge a bit of, we don't exactly know what we're doing, but we know exactly what we're doing. That's you're basically producing these people, and that's not something that I think they're always accustomed to,
I am doing exactly that on the spot. And you're right. They're not, people aren't accustomed to it. Oddly enough, the brand new artists are the easiest ones because they don't know what's going on. They're just like puppy dogs. They're like, yeah, let's go. Let's do it. Whereas you take a guy that's been around for as long as me and he's like, oh, am I doing the right thing here? Am I fucking up? This isn't the way I always sing this song.
I mean, it was interesting. I mean, even seeing the Fripp, I just watched it. I didn't really know that Robert Fripp had been on there. I didn't know how I missed that one, but I was watching that last week, and even he seemed a little, as adventurous as they come, but even he seemed a little nervous,
Yeah, well, Robert is a very controlled person, but with an amazing sense of humor, I got to add. But I know he was good. He was fine. I think he just was really, he'd been wanting to do this for a long time, is what it was. Is we've been trying to get together for years, and it finally happened. Maybe that showed,
Seeing you guys do, I think it's NYC and why that has that just insane opening riff.
How did he come up with that? I don't know.
It's insane. And he's like, I haven't done this in 40 something years. Just like, that's the level of his genius, is that these things are just coming out of him,
He's unbelievable is what he is.
If I wrote that riff, I would never stop playing it.
He just goes up with that shit. That's just another riff, you know.
Were you into King Crimson in the day?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was very much into that, to his version of progressive rock. I was into him is what I was into. I mean, you know, we did do Red from on the show, and I'm so proud of my band. They just played that. Now, Robert said, I have never been in any organization that ever played that song that it didn't take at least 3 days to learn it. And these guys just played it. They just listened to it at home by themselves. We got together and we played the motherfucker. You know, I mean, it's one band I got. But that comes, you know, my love for King Crimson comes from back then, Lark's Tongue and Aspic and all that stuff. I mean, I heard the power and the soul in it, and I heard the Stravinsky in it. I heard everything in it. I think that he's a very unique musician.
I don't want to keep it too much longer, but I do want to return to, I feel like maybe I glossed over Christopher Bond. We mentioned him a couple of times during the conversation. So he comes in during Abandoned Luncheonette. Was it Arif that brought him in?
No, he's a Philly guy. He was in our band. John and I had our little quartet, and he was one of the guys.
He was in your band? I didn't realize he was in.
Yeah, in the beginning, yeah.
So someone else from Philly, I was just curious, what happened to Jim Helmer, who was the drummer in Gulliver, played on Hall Oates? Incredible drum parts on that record.
I know, it was good. I lost track of Jim. I lost track of all those guys. I know Tim Moore, he was a songwriter, a guitar player. He lives in Woodstock, that's all I know. But I don't know anything, I have no idea what happened to Jim.
Just wanted, while I have you, that always bugged me. Just didn't know what happened to him.
You're definitely the first person to ever ask me about Jim Helmer, which is cool.
Just batting clean up here. I do want to ask you about G.E. Smith, too. How important do you feel he was to that version of Hall Oates?
I think he added his very large personality to things. I think that his guitar work on the records that he played on the Hall Oates records, was really, really exceptional. I think he did a lot of things that were really amazing. He didn't get in the way. He added the GE sound to it, you know? I mean, I'm, again, a great guitar player.
And the GE sound wasn't really a thing that had been on records like that before, you know? I mean, you guys really were the first to get them like that, yeah.
Oh, he was brand new. He was straight out of, he's from Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I met him when he had just moved out of there, basically.
Did you just let him go, or was there much shaping? Would you talk through parts with him, or?
I'd let him go, but I would let him go within a controlled situation, you know? I mean, and tell him what I thought, and if he did something I didn't like, I'd say, tell him that too, you know? He usually did the right thing.
Was that a good relationship overall, or?
We had a less than good relationship because he's a strange guy, man. I mean, I don't know how to put it. His personality and mine weren't exactly in line. That's the best way I could put it.
I think that's a way that everyone can understand.
Yeah.
It doesn't diminish the talent.
Yeah.
At this point, set list wise, when you go do dates, how are you picking a set list?
I do a little, I'm going to try and emphasize the D album bit. I think I'm going to do about 4 songs from that. That's my plan. I've already been doing that. And other than that, I play things from whatever, you know, from whatever my history is. And there's certain songs that you have to play. I mean, I have to play Sara Smile, which is fine with me. You know, I mix it up. I play Philly Mood. I play all kinds of things.
Well, Daryl Hall, thank you so much for talking about all this. I mean, it's a hell of a musical history. So, I mean, thank you.
Well, thanks for having me, man.
In the episode description, you'll find a link to a playlist of our favorite Daryl Hall tracks. Be sure to check out youtube.com/broken record to see all of our video interviews. And be sure to follow us on Instagram @TheBrokenRecordPod. You can follow us on Twitter @BrokenRecord. Broken Record is produced by Leah Rose with marketing help from Eric Sandler and Jordan McMillan. Our engineer is Ben Tolliday. Broken Record is a production of Pushkin Industries. And if you like this show, please remember to share, rate, and review us on your podcast app. Our theme music's by Kenny Beats. I'm Justin Richmond.